All right, we're going to talk about the JFK assassination files that are being released. A question I have on my mind is if they're releasing the JFK assassination files, why have they not released the Epstein files?
60 years, we are finally getting access to some government files related to the assassination of John F. Kennedy. There are 80,000 of them, so we've got a whole team of CBS News people working their way through the documents. That includes Caitlin Huey-Burns, who's going to join us now. Caitlin, good morning. What have you and the others found so far?
Hey, Tony, good morning. Well, President Trump told reporters ahead of this release that there would be a lot of reading to do, and boy, he was not wrong. I can personally...
Did you see the parts on the Hungarian Revolution? I did. But this is like, guys, the CIA actively played a role in mass instability against a foreign adversary like the USSR. Like, yeah, that still doesn't change the dynamic in general in terms of like overall discontent with the USSR. And also it doesn't, make the Russian actions in that regard in terms of suppressing any sort of movement against the USSR that was fairly violent appropriate. Like it's okay to recognize the wrongs of previous socialist formations. I certainly do. And the reason for why I recognize them, regardless of not being a anti-USSR kind of guy in general, is because it's important to learn from the mistakes of previous formations, so you don't repeat the same mistakes.
Attest to that. These documents total 80,000 pages. And as you mentioned, we had a whole team of reporters here at CBS going through them. And many of these files have already been released before. And if you're one of those who were looking for any proof of conspiracy, you will likely be disappointed.
More than 60 years after the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, the Trump administration released 80,000 pages of records to the public Tuesday night relating to his murder. Culling through the files is a tedious task. The scanned documents, many handwritten and going back over 60 years, can be at times difficult to read and decipher. Lee Harvey Oswald, the man who shot Kennedy in November of 1963, is mentioned 55 times in the documents, including in this 79-page summary of CIA surveillance operations that monitored Oswald's movements in Mexico City, where he visited the Russian and Cuban embassies ahead of the assassination. And
the JFK files revealed once again the government position that it was actually Cuba. Hey guys, Lee Harvey Oswald, not a Navy officer, Navy intelligence officer. Okay, definitely not like actively engaging in disruptive as a member of intelligence. Certainly not engaging in following the CIA handbook field manual of like disrupting any sort of revolutionary action from taking place. It's actually real. He didn't visit those embassies as a Fed. He visited them as a sympathizer. Definitely a Cuban asset, not an American one.
In this letter, written in 1978, from a man to the British ambassador in Washington. In it, he says he told...
I'm so glad that they revealed this, something that they've, said over and over again.
Immigration officials in London that in July of 1963, just 4 months before the assassination, of a plan by Oswald to kill Kennedy.
It's possible, which is what makes this so scary. Wait, what? No.
But so far, the trove of mostly unredacted files show there is nothing that changes he was the sole assassin.
The documents, they don't show conspiracy.
David Barrett, a professor of political science at Villanova University who studies the Kennedy presidency, says that while these files are not a smoking gun, they provide government transparency.
Maybe it will lessen the suspicion that the FBI or the CIA or some other government leader or agency were involved in a plot to kill Kennedy.
The Trump administration says the release represents a campaign promise kept, a promise he made the day Robert F. Kennedy Jr. endorsed him.
I have never had more people ask me, please, sir, release the documents on the Kennedy assassination, and we're going to do that.
And during a visit to the Kennedy Center on Monday, he announced they were ready to go.
So people have been waiting for decades for this. I don't believe we're going to redact anything.
Now, anyone can see these documents on the National Archives website, and more are going to be added once they are digitized, but others still remain under court seal. Now, you may remember the president's executive order also demanded the files from the assassinations of Robert F. Kennedy and of Martin Luther King Jr. to be released, but it's not yet clear when those will be published. Gail?
All right, Caitlin, got it. Thank you very much.
I hate when this chat becomes the Alex Jones of the left moment. Something like this happens. What do you mean? My favorite fact about Lee Harvey is that he visited the USSR and Cuba with the intent of denouncing his American citizenship, only to be found too annoying by the USSR, and he tore up his passport for no reason. Yeah, and then with very little scrutiny from the American government, was allowed to return and operate freely inside of U.S. boundaries. I find that very interesting, personally. I guess it's one of those. It is one of those conspiracies that I'm like not firmly on the government side on. Like I think that the established narrative is not the correct one. I don't think it is. But let's continue with the JFK stuff, because the original anti-imperialists who were smeared as so-called tankies were correct. The commander of the U.S.-backed insurgents in the violent 1956 counter-revolution attempt in socialist Hungary, General Bela Karali, was a CIA asset. This has been confirmed by the JFK records. So my attitude on this is the same attitude that I have, the same attitude that I have with discontent in general in under Soviet rule. Okay, I don't think that the actions of the USSR were appropriate, regardless of the fact that the CIA certainly played a role in this. Now, the CIA playing a role in this doesn't also change the dynamic that there was also real discontent. No country is powerful enough to whip enough votes or to create this level of backlash. They can only exacerbate existing tensions. Okay? As far as the discontent, as far as the discontent goes, of course the CIA was helping the Hungarian counter-revolution. Like, it's just not, this is basic CIA shit. That's not surprising to me at all. What's more interesting for me is, like, what the USSR's attempt in squashing this protest looked like and why they were a failure in general. A copy of a letter of the subject's file dated 22nd of November 1963, signed by the subject secretary for Military Affairs Executive Committee, Movimiento Democrata Cristiano, is addressed to Major General Bela K. Karali, President Hungarian Freedom Fighters Federation, Inc. Offered the services of the MDC in arranging meetings and discussions with other anti-Castro organizations and the Hungarian Freedom Fighters. The Hungarian Freedom Fighters was interested in information on the MDC before granting approval or contact between two organizations. Subject, a 32-year-old Cuban exile, was from a wealthy Cuban family, and in Cuba, he was a banker. He was granted a POA in December 1959 and an NOA in February 1960 for the use of FP agent in Havana, Cuba. A copy letter in subject's file dated 22nd of November 1963, signed by subject as Secretary of Military Affairs, is addressed to Major General Bela Karali, President Hungarian Freedom Fighters Federation, with other anti-Castro organizations. Bela Karali dies at 97, led revolt in Hungary. JFK release appears to have genuinely unredacted material in it. Is a gigantic non-word searchable dump of PDFs, so it's slow going, but here's one example of previously released redacted document that I located and a new unredacted document. Oh yeah, the Hungarian Freedom Fighters were agency sponsored is the part that was unredacted. I don't think they would have inserted false material or whatever, but it remains to be seen if they have released/will release the really important stuff, e.g. the Angleton docs that Jefferson Morley has emphasized in his reporting. Holy cow, this guy found a sick one. James Angleton, Central Intelligence Agency official, is in charge of the Special Projects Unit located in the Foreign Intelligence Division of the CIA. During the past year, he has been very cooperative and has volunteered voluminous information of interest to the Bureau. At the present time, he more or less falls in the category of confidential informant. In order to handle his material in a more efficient and secure manner, it is being recommended that a control file be created. Section chiefs are also being alerted regarding the handling of information received from Angleton. In the previous ones, where is the redacted version released June 2023 covers up Jay Lovestone bit, which is funnier because it's been known for like decades that Angleton was Jay Lovestone's handler. So Noah is like pouring through the data and looking at what was previously redacted and is now unredacted in this data dump. It is very much searchable text. Upload the Google Drive as Google Docs and download the document and upload to AI. Jefferson Morley says, this morning at 8 a.m., I can't search these new JFK files. I hear you cry. Alas, the National Archives/Trump team failed to take the simple step of OCRing the released JFK files. But fear not, fellow researchers. The Mary Farrell Foundation is coming to your rescue. MFF will soon post searchable PDFs of all the new JFK files. In coming days, you can escape the clunky NARA site to go over to maryfarrell.org, the largest online archive of JFK records, to continue your research. Stay tuned for details. I know, like, this is bad, but I still read it and find it exciting. No, I don't think this is bad. I think it's not bad to understand how it's not bad to understand how the American government operates, especially the CIA. Like, I think the more informative stuff here is not to like arrive at a truth about who actually killed JFK. It's more so to get unrestricted, unfiltered access into how the CIA operated at the time and what they did. This is proof of a lot of the things that leftist tankies, whatever you want to fucking call it, will openly talk about in terms of like what the clandestine operations of the American State Department, the statecraft, looks like. This basically is just like proof of a lot of the things that they talk about, and they are the ones who oftentimes put the unredacted pieces of information together. Will this help me lose less on my polymarket bets that are longer than the list of American war crimes? Here's Jefferson Morley. He is formerly of the Washington Post, author of The Ghost, The Secret Life of CIA Spy Master James Jesus Angleton. Jefferson Morley is at least according to Noah, a trusted resource on JFK-related information, so I trust him as well. He says, while we continue to look through the new JFK documents, a couple of observations. First, this is a breakthrough. The absurd and suspicious redaction that have denied us the full story are, for the most part, removed. We know why JFK wanted to splinter the CIA into 1,000 pieces and scatter it into the winds. Because as Arthur Schlesinger told him, the CIA was effectively usurping presidential authority. The agency censored Schlesinger's case for 6 decades to obfuscate the reality of CIA power. Schlesinger warned JFK that CIA encroachment on the traditional functions of the state undermined his ability to conduct his own foreign policy independent of CIA. No, this isn't a smoking gun, but that doesn't mean it's historically irrelevant. Far from it. Schlesinger's memo lays bare the origins of JFK's mistrust of the CIA, which continued for the rest of his presidency. Kennedy's suspicions were matched by CIA alienation from JFK's liberal policies. This was one cause of the assassination. So the way I explain it is like, everyone basically knew that this was the case, but this offers like direct proof, if that makes sense. A ton of Israel/Mossad mentions in the JFK files about Angleton. Yeah, of course. JFK files reveal CIA Israeli intel pipeline. But once again, a thing that we know, right? A thing that we know that is well established, that everybody fucking talks about. But now there's more proof for it. This is not shocking or surprising. This is more so just additional proof for a thing that everybody understood was the reality. Yeah, the only continued redaction from the JFK documents has been look, James Angleton, CIA underpart, emanated from a liaison agreement which CIA maintained with the Israeli intelligence service and from other sources under the control of Angleton. Much of the information developed by Angleton was not disseminated within the CIA, but he felt that the data should be passed on to the Bureau. Alan Dulles gave him authorization to handle dissemination in this matter. We continue to receive information of value on a regular basis. Maybe the most damning, the CIA put contaminating agent in Cuban sugar headed for the Soviet Union. Also under the heading of old business. Wait. Oh, there it is. I remember the hue cry, especially in Carl Kazin in the White House when bleep, this was initially redacted. Here it is, unredacted. Also under the heading of old business, I will remember the hue and cry raised, especially by Carl Kazin in the White House when the agency injected a contaminating agent in Cuban sugar bound for the Soviet Union. Shortly after the Cuban Missile Crisis, there was a disposition in Washington to re-examine the Bay of Pigs. And the fact that several Alabama National Air Guard officers lost their lives in the Bay of Pigs was surfaced, with surprisingly little excitement at the times. Can you explain why the CIA isn't what it used to be? Capitalism and shittification. It impacts all orifices and the organs of the state, as well as every other aspect of our lives. I genuinely think that. I think like the private-public partnership and the like funding being limited, I guess, even though they have expansive budgets, has definitely changed. Like they won, you know what I mean? They won the Cold War. Capitalism won, socialism lost. And in the process, I think year over year, the regulation, the deregulatory aspects, and the lack of interest in or the lack of appropriate avenues and targets for the CIA made it so that it was no longer as necessary, as needed in the minds of those who control at least the funding structure. It's not because everyone is more aware and connected in the present day. I don't think so. I mean, look at Israel, dude. Everyone is incredibly connected to the crimes of Israel, many crimes of Israel, and yet people seemingly turn the other cheek and look the other way and still call me a terrorist, for example, for accurately explaining what Israel is doing. Unsurprisingly, this entire page was previously redacted. Turns out the FBI and CIA jointly bugged a ambassador's office, and CIA panicked and shut it down when Hoover planned to tell the Senate that it was a CIA operation before asking to start it up again later. More CIA domestic contact service activity. 1800 is quite a lot of businesses participating in the commercial cover program to backstop aliases from U.S. military and intelligence personnel. The U.S. didn't want to admit that it collected against friendly foreign countries and also concealed the existence of a program describing technical penetration of foreign diplomatic establishments, all the modern versions of which I'm assuming were blown by Snowden anyways. Intelligence coverage of friendly foreign countries, developing positive intelligence information regarding personnel. Anagram, penetration of foreign diplomatic establishments in the United States for procurement of cryptographic materials. So yeah, this is literally Edward Snowden. Remember when Edward Snowden blew the whistle on how much espionage the American intelligence agencies were engaging in for with our against our foreign allies? This is they've been doing this, and we now know about it not because of the revelations in the document in the JFK documents, but we know about it because Edward Snowden blew the whistle on it. Continue from the previous memo. This doc was initially notable for confirming the existence of ProHo, but in 2023, they still wanted to postpone releasing all the info about all technical collection programs against Soviets under a catch-all clause to protect national intelligence and defense interests. A 1973 memo from CIA's ORD, Office of Research and Development, that, as of 2023, withheld info about CIA and Bell, now known as AT&T, testing microwave technology to intercept domestic telecommunications. A lot of this stuff also is it didn't go anywhere. That's the other thing. When you look at the conspiracy theories for too long, sometimes you end up falsely assuming that MK Ultra was a massive success or whatever. You know what I mean? That CIA's implementation of hypnosis, for example, was successful. A lot of that stuff was not successful. Domestic tests for agency research and development efforts continued. This describes the CIA admitting to being able to basically covertly tap into any U.S. telephone networks, landlines then, and also developing sensors and tech like FLIR, far-looking infrared, in the early 70s. This, I think, is part of the reason. I mean, from what I understand, the American infrastructure is still very bad. Telecommunications infrastructure is still very bad, that China was able to penetrate it with ease. There was a New York Times article on this a while back, a couple months ago, where where it turns out the Chinese government and its espionage agencies had deeply penetrated American telecommunications and were directly looking at everything that people were saying. And the only reason why they were utilizing it was to figure out if their deep cover agents were under threat or not, so they can pull them out. Birds are real and they work for the government. Oh my God, someone show this to. Oh my God. Oh my God. Hold on. Ain't nobody show this to Adapt. He's going to lose his mind. Oh my God. Adapt was right. This was a previously redacted piece of information. Let's take a look. G. Trained birds. Birds have been trained and tested in the United States to carry small intelligence collecting packages such as audio surveillance devices, small cameras, and current measuring devices. Any data collected from unwitting domestic sources would have been used only for engineering purposes and then destroyed. Adapt! It's real! They have to redact this again. Yo, my apologies to Phase Adapt. Phase up. He's been on this for a long time, dude. He's been talking about how birds have been used for espionage for quite a while now. And it turns out he was right. NSA participated and controlled most elements of the U.S. material. Oh, shocking. Redacted memo about intelligence coverage of diplomatic representatives of friendly foreign nations with a particular warning the U.S. officials working closely with French, British, Israeli, and German intelligence officers. So this entire memo was redacted. Let's take a look. Intelligence coverage of diplomatic representatives of friendly foreign nations. As you are aware, at the present time, our coverage on the intelligence efforts of foreign countries here in the United States is primarily aimed at the activities of Soviet and communist bloc countries. This has been brought about by the fact that those countries represent the greatest threat to the security of our nation, both in the international and domestic fields. Notwithstanding the foregoing, a number of instances have been brought to our attention reflecting so-called friendly nations are engaging in direct intelligence activities against the United States. The case involving Joseph Sidney Peterson, Jr., who was engaged in furnishing top-secret information from the National Security Agency to representatives of the Netherlands government, fully portrays the inherent danger in such intelligence activities. They were doing to us what only we get to do to them. See, now, this only goes in one direction. Only we get to spy on our foreign allies, our friendly foreign nations. Our friendly foreign nations don't get to spy on us unless you're Israel, in which case you get to do whatever the you want, okay? Which is part of the reason why I always say, like, half the CIA loves Israel and actively collaborates with Israel. The other half of the CIA despises Israel and wants to stop the cross-pollination. I think we all know which side won for quite a while now, actually. All right, it reaches another nation. Our security with respect to such information is only as good as the security of the foreign government. The purpose of this memorandum, therefore, is to alert you to the necessity of promptly bringing the Bureau's attention any information developed indicating representatives of foreign countries are engaged in intelligence activities here. Our basic policy is to conduct investigations only in instances where we receive allegations indicating an individual representing a foreign nation is engaging in activities in violation of our laws or otherwise constitutes a security menace. The Bureau is aware that the French, the British, the Israelis, the Germans, and a number of other nations either have regularly assigned intelligence representatives in the United States or, from time to time, send such representatives to the United States. In many instances, such representatives deal with the United States government agencies on an official basis. At the same time, it is possible that such representatives are engaged in other intelligence activities while here. We are requesting other government agencies who deal with intelligence representatives of foreign governments to keep us advised of the identities of foreign intelligence operatives in the United States. There it is. It apparently wasn't until 1955 that the FBI decided it should be spying on friendly nations. State Department had their own views on which country's staff should be targeted and surveilled first: Egypt, Syria, Saudi Arabia, and Israel, although it turned out Israel was already covered. Look, he stated that no coverage would be advisable at this time on such countries such as Greece, Turkey, Iran, Iraq, since the conditions in those countries are not, I guess, appropriate. In 1958, FBI was surveilling over a dozen Israeli nationals suspected of engaging in intelligence activities in Washington, D.C. and New York City, which was redacted previously. State Department told the FBI to proceed with caution when trying to develop informants within Israeli diplomatic establishments because most of the U.S. citizens hired by the Israelis are pro-Israeli in their thinking, i.e. watch out for double agents. Oh, no. The bottom said 9/11. Dude, what are you, crazy? This is the JFK Files. What are you talking about 9/11? If anything, they're talking about Chile, potentially. Not 9/11 2001. They didn't. The American intelligence community did not become the architects of 9/11 in like the 50s. Yeah. There's two 9/11s that American intelligence was to a certain degree involved with, you know? More evidence of U.S. CIA involvement in Sudan, Egypt, Syria, Yemen, and Libya. I know this is from 1959, but I'm honestly still pretty surprised it was released in its entirety. Ton of info about collecting against friendly nations. I guess the reason why they released the unredacted files is because most of the stuff is well established at this point, partially because as far as like the active collection of intelligence from foreign allies and not adversaries, but foreign allies specifically, was uncovered by Edward Snowden. So in that regard, they don't see any issue just openly releasing this stuff. I don't know. There's still information, I think, that you can derive out of this. This obviously specifically looks at like what the previously redacted, now unredacted files are. But as far as people claiming that this in and of itself is like irrelevant data, I disagree with you. I think that there's some worth in this information. Like, this is valuable information. It's important to now officially confirm previous assertions that were made through circumstantial evidence. This is now direct evidence. You know what I mean? Like, there's only so much you can do as far as developing a theory about clandestine activities of the CIA. But when they do deliver unredacted information like this, it basically solidifies those theories. It turns them into facts. It just creates confirmation. I don't think it's a smoke screen. Anyway, from a historian's perspective, you can only assume this stuff, but now as a factual fact is great for correcting misconception in academic sense. Sure. As far as like figuring out who did it, who done it, I don't think we know. I don't think we will ever. I doubt that until like the American regime is toppled in its entirety, will you ever. And even then, there's probably a contingency to burn all of those files regardless. So I doubt that we'll ever truly get this level of evidence on the who done it. This is an insane sequence of words that I did not understand could exist. Granny Hawktua was a CIA informant on the CPUSA, apparently. Jane Welsh. As the informant is aware, no connection between Lee Harvey Oswald and North Carolina branch of the Communist Party is known to exist. Actions before assassination consistent with previous behavior. Soviet connections recently sent memo denying any connection to Oswald to CPUSA governing committee. Opinion among membership divided on cause and justification of assassination. Party weapons appear to be accounted for with involvement neighboring vicinity of assassination. What? Withstanding neighboring vicinity of assassination? What does WI mean? Member Bleep, who previously served under Bleep, has been unaccounted for since February, although no reason to suspect involvement is currently known. The CIA or CPUSA party meetings at informant Falconry Ranch continue weekly as before assassination. No suspect. Subject is Jane Welsh, 23-year-old CPUSA operations board. I cannot believe that Hawktua's grandmother was a CIA informant for the Communist Party of the USA. What the hell? So Hawktua is a psyop. Schizo's confirmed. Schizo's vindicated. Schizo's vindicated again. God damn. It's a joke, dude. Falconry Ranch equals Hawk. Yeah, I'm joking. I don't think this is real.